Bada bing, bada boo.
We get a lot of odd emails. Sometimes we get emails just simply telling us to look into somebody's name. Like there's no criminal record, there's no online discourse, it's just a name. And then we respond and then there's no response back. But that is still probably nothing at all compared to what the producers of the Oprah Winfrey Show likely got when it was on air. December 2006, the Oprah Show just flew out an entire family, almost 24 family members, all the way from Arkansas to Chicago. They're paying for the airfare, hotel costs, food costs, everything, which is a lot of money for almost 20 people. But the family that they're bringing into interview, they're famous. They're the Duggars. They have their own TLC reality show. They're all about good Christian values and procreating. Like there is a mandated law that if you don't pop out a child every other summer out of you, you will be struck down by lightning. They're naturally a very interesting sight. The girls in the family all have curly hair, wear long dresses. They look like they're stepping out of a movie from decades ago before cities had running water. But before they can even step foot onto the production stage for the Oprah Winfrey Show, before they can even do a sound check, an email lands in one of the producers' inboxes. Before you air the Duggar family from Arkansas, you need to know the truth. They are not what they seem to be. Joshua, the eldest son of the 19 kids, has molested his siblings while they were sleeping, and the parents have been hiding this secret for a long time. Jim Bob, the father, lies to his church and his friends to make him look good. At this moment, he is in trouble with the church for lying about Joshua and the things that concern the way the church members reacted. I think that you should know the truth before they make a complete fool out of you in your show. They have been on TV before and come across as a perfect family, which couldn't be further from the truth. They jump from show to receive gifts for their family to make them look really good. Please consider this and confront them about their secret.
Whoa.
The Oprah Winfrey Show, they canceled the Duggar interview. Even though they're already waiting for the Oprah Winfrey Show in Chicago ready to film, they cancel it. And then they forward this email to the local police station. This email from 2006 is going to kickstart a decade-long secret ordeal that ultimately implodes and results in multiple arrests. At least 3 Duggars have been arrested thus far, 1 police officer in connection with the case, mostly all for crimes against children. Whoever emailed Oprah was right. The Duggars were hiding something. We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They are the nation's largest and most influential child protection organization. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team of dedicated researchers. And we'd also like to thank you guys for your continued support. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. A lot of disclaimers with this case. There's religious trauma, grooming, incest, CSAM, CSA, so please watch with caution. This is going to be a multi-episode series, so please take breaks whenever you feel overwhelmed. All information is publicly available. Any netizen comments, speculations, theories, or allegations are opinions of netizens, and statements and quotes have been condensed for brevity. This is going to be a massive deep dive. So with that being said, let's get started. So let me just run you through the Joshua Duggar timeline. The Duggar family are about to go on Oprah when her production team get an email that something nefarious has happened in the family home. That the eldest child, the first son, Joshua Duggar, has been molesting his younger sisters.
Did you say this is 2006?
Yes, 2006.
That's very early on, right?
Mm-hmm. And then from then, nothing. The letter made it to the Oprah team, and it's not made public because I'm sure the Oprah team would have been sued and back for that. Though the production crew, they do forward this email to the rightful police department that would have jurisdiction, but the public don't know any of this. The show, 19 Kids and Counting, continues to air the happy, solidly wholesome, at least the Duggar parents, they're very much bigoted, okay? Some of the children, I'm sure they have different views, I don't know, but on the show, they're wholesome, and their biggest problem is making enough dinner for their 20-plus member family. The public does not know that there are crimes against children being committed in the family home. It's not until 2015, almost 10 years later, that information is made public. InTouch magazine does a FOIA request, and they do an expose. They reveal that they were able to get their hands on the police files from back in 2006 when the police investigate the family after the failed Oprah interview. The police document goes public. public. The sisters who were abused by Joshua were very upset that the police file was made public because people are guessing which sister was the victim in the redacted files. They were able to put the ages together, the length of the redacted names, and it was pretty easy to figure out who had been victimized by Joshua.
And they don't want that information public.
No. So while a few of the sisters have publicly spoken out about it, I'm going to be very vague in some of the details, so it's hard to pinpoint who was a victim. But let's run through the timeline. Jim Bob Duggar, the family man Christian who wants capital punishment for crimes like incest, first learns that Joshua has been assaulting his sisters, touching his sisters while they were asleep. This is back in 2002 he figures this out. Joshua is 14.
Okay.
Joshua is 14, 2002, Jim Bob finds out. He does not report this to the police. A few months later, Joshua admits again that he's been molesting yet another sister. So the parents decide that they're going to discipline him privately at home, but nothing else. No call to the police, nothing. They will later report it, but not right now. Instead, Jim Bob punishes Joshua, and at the same time, he's running for the Republican Senate seat in Arkansas, and he's talking about how incest needs to be a capital crime. And the next year, in 2003, the Duggar parents are made aware of 2 more incidents where he molests a victim who is awake and sitting on his lap. Then around the same time, in the laundry room, he later puts his hand up another victim's dress. Jim Bob goes to the church. He asks the church leaders for the best course of action because he doesn't know how to prevent this from happening again. The church elders are like, oh yeah, he needs help. You gotta send him away. Jim Bob sends him to this counseling camp, or at least that's like what Jim Bob tells the police. There's a Christian counseling program where he had to do manual labor and work with counselors, which turned out not to even be a counseling camp. It was just like a fellow Christian who owned a home remodeling business. Not that I would even think a counseling camp would suffice, but it's just some church friend. When he gets back, remember Jim Holt? Joshua Duggar was supposed to court Jim Holt's oldest daughter,
Yes.
Kaylee. Everyone was like, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna get married because Jim Bob and Jim Holt are besties. They're both politicians, they both have a trillion children, and their son and daughter are they're the same age, they're gonna get married. Well, out of nowhere, Jim Holt is like, I'm not friends with Jim Bob anymore. I'm not talking about Jim Bob. My daughter will never be around Jim Bob's kids anymore, so no, fuck Jim Bob. And everyone's like, what happened? It was at this moment, that Jim Bob tells Jim Holt, hey, this is what my son's been doing, and we're trying to remedy it by sending him to this counseling program.
Wow, he volunteered that information.
Yeah, and Jim Holt is like, that's actually crazy. You need to take him to the police. This is a literal crime that you actually advocate against when you're trying to run for office. So like, you need to take him to the police. So that's what they do. They take Joshua to the police and they choose a very specific officer by the name of Joseph Hutchins. He's a former state trooper, but he's now in prison, federal prison, for the next 56 years for CSAM.
The officer also?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know that, right? When that happened.
That's what they say.
So what do you mean by they take it to?
No, so Joseph Hutchins was a close friend, it seems, of the family.
Okay.
Or is at least very friendly with the family.
So what is the police doing with Josh at that point?
So Joseph Hutchins gives Joshua a very stern talking to, and that's it.
What?
Joseph Hutchins, also, he is in prison right now, and he will come out to state that, well, actually, Jim Bob lied to me. He told me it was just one time. If I had known it was multiple times, I would have written him up and done something about it, but he told me it was one time, so I gave him a stern talking to, essentially like that. But Hutchins, like I said, is a close family friend, gives him that stern talking to, of what could happen if he continues such behavior. And Hutchins is like, well, there's nothing else I can do about it. So for the next 3 years since that point, the Duggars focus on getting famous, making millions of dollars, showing their very safe, very loving, wholesome family of children who all live together while there were reported crimes inside the house. And then 2006, 3 years after reporting it to the police, they show up in Chicago for the Oprah Winfrey interview, and the producers get an email that something nefarious is happening in the house. A formal investigation starts. The family fly back to Arkansas. They relay all the stuff that's happened in the past few years, and the police determine in 2006 that the time in which they could have pressed charges has expired. They can't do anything about it. Everything is out in the open. No one is negating that this happened. It's just they can't do anything about it. And if you're wondering, how did somebody email Oprah? So the identity of the emailer is a little bit vague right now, but there were 2 emails sent. One to the police station directly, and then one to the Oprah Winfrey Show. And it seems like it all starts with a letter inside of a book. The InTouch reports, the Duggars told police that at the time Josh was accused of and admitting to these sexual acts, a family friend aware of what had happened had written down, in this little piece of paper, a letter, what he knew of Josh's actions. That letter was then placed inside of a book and then forgotten about. And then just recently in 2006, the book had been loaned out to someone else with the letter in it, and that person read the letter and started talking to all the church community members about what they found in the book of this letter, and somebody emailed Oprah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So in 2006, mainstream media, the press, the public, they still don't know about any of these accusations, these allegations, except there's a few whispers on forums that something weird is happening with Josh Duggar and he's not a golden boy. But a lot of these whispers are coming from people that are in that same church community in Arkansas. They don't have proof. It's just like an internet whisper. Nothing is confirmed. 2015, InTouch gets their hands on that police file, and they decide to metaphorically let the hell gates open and release them to the public. They reveal that Joshua was 15 years old when he molested his much younger siblings and committed at least 7 acts of sexual molestation. It alleges that he would go from sister to sister because all the girls would sleep in one common room. All the guys would sleep in a common room, and he would molest them. Jim, Bob, and Michelle argued that Joshua apologized to the victims and they had forgiven him. So what's crazy is what follows after is almost as alarming as the original reports. The family released statements. Side note, in 2015, that's when the Ashley Madison leak is also occurring. So Joshua is married. He and his wife, Anna Duggar, have 4 kids, one of whom is born during the midst of all of this in 2015. She gives birth while all of this is happening. The InTouch expose goes live. Then the Ashley Madison leak happens.
Wow.
But Jim, Bob, and Michelle, they write, back 12 years ago, our family went through one of the most difficult times of our lives. When Joshua was a young teenager, he made some very bad mistakes, and we were shocked. We had tried to teach him right from wrong. That dark and difficult time caused us to seek God like never before. Even though we never choose to go through something so terrible, each one of our family members drew closer to God. We pray that as people watch our lives, that they see that we are not a perfect family. We have challenges and struggles every day. It is one of the reasons we treasure our faith so much, because God's kindness and goodness and forgiveness are extended to us, even though we are so undeserving. Josh writes in his statement, 12 years ago, as a young teenager, I acted inexcusably, for which I am extremely sorry and deeply regret.
Is this the same response to the Ashley Madison post or a separate one?
A separate one. So this one comes first, and then Ashley Madison comes next. Okay. I heard others, including my family and close friends. I confessed this to my parents, who took several steps to help me address the situation. We spoke with the authorities, where I confessed my wrongdoing, and my parents arranged for me and those affected by my actions to receive counseling. So he just goes down I sought forgiveness, Christ forgave me, so I'm thankful for God's grace, mercy, and redemption. Anna Duggar, Joshua's wife and the mother of their 4 children, who the world thinks is just finding out about the fact that he molested his sisters, she makes a statement. I can imagine the shock many of you are going through reading this. I remember feeling that same shock. It was not at the point of engagement or after we were married. It was 2 years before Josh asked me to marry him. Josh shared his past teenage mistakes. I was surprised at his openness and humility, and at the same time, I didn't know why he was sharing it. For Josh, he wanted not just me, but my parents to know who he really was, even every difficult past mistake. At that point, and over the next 2 years, Joshua shared how the counseling he received changed his life as he continued to do what he was taught. She says that she felt comfortable marrying Josh because he was someone who, quote, had gone down a wrong path and had humbled himself before God and those whom he had offended, someone who had received the help needed to change the direction of his life and do what is right. I want to say thank you to those who took time over a decade ago to help Josh in a time of crisis. Your investment changed his life from going down the wrong path into doing what's right. If it weren't for your help, I would not be here as a wife celebrating 6.5 years of marriage to a man who knows how to be a gentleman and treat a girl right. Thank you to all of you who tirelessly work with children in crisis. You are changing lives, and I'm forever grateful to all of you. That's just not how it works, okay? A lot of people think that Anna Duggar's reaction, Jim Bob, Michelle, Joshua Duggar, are they living in the same reality as we are? This is not the kind of statement that you release in a situation like this. Like, this is not normal. TLC, there's talks of them canceling their show. They stop all reruns of 19 Kids and Counting. Advertisers start backing out, not of just 19 Kids and Counting, but of the TLC network. People are rightfully fucking pissed off. How dare you preach family values and use it as a way to justify being homophobic, transphobic against women, and then you're what? Protecting a predator in your own home? And then the interview drops. The Duggars decide, in the heat of this PR crisis, they're going to sit down for an hour-long interview with Megyn Kelly, then with Fox News. So that's when Megyn Kelly was an anchor on Fox News, to share their side of the story.
Who's there?
Everyone. So first, it's Jim Bob and Michelle sitting side by side, appearing almost with like a strange, nonchalant attitude, as if this is just another press tour for one of their many, many specials. But they're here to address the fact that their eldest son was molesting his younger sisters in their sleep inside their house, and they did nothing about it. Jim Bob starts.
We went through one of the most darkest times that our family's ever gone through. And our son Josh came to us on his own, and he was crying. And he had just turned 14. And he said that he had actually improperly touched some of our daughters.
We were shocked. I mean, we were just devastated. I don't think any parent is prepared for trauma like that. And I think we had one ray of hope in that Josh had a tender conscience, and he was the one that came and shared on his own, even though the others really didn't know anything of his wrongdoing.
This is something that they do, which is skip over the fact that the police report states that he had a victim on his lap when he molested her, and she was very much conscious. But the Duggar parents, they seem to only like to talk about the fact that Joshua molested his sisters while they were asleep, almost as if, well, they didn't realize what he was doing, so it must be no harm, no foul. It's like a victimless crime. Michelle states that, yes, as a parent, she was devastated because they're trying to raise their kids right, but here's one of their children just making some really bad choices. Jim Bob says,
He was just curious about girls, and he had gone in and just basically touched them over their clothes while they were asleep, and they didn't even know he had done it. And so we went, and the first thing was to protect the girls
Because
and the children.
it was so important for us as parents to talk to our girls and make sure that nothing else had happened. And so
What did they say?
Well, one by one, as we talked with them, none of them were aware of Josh's wrongdoing.
when asked about what they did, Jim Bob says, so I talked to him and we put all kinds of punishments on him. We watched him all the time. I took him to work with me, and he just, we poured our lives into him.
So we had safeguards that protected them from that. But there was another incident where, two different incidents where girls were like laying on the couch, and it was and he had touched over the couch and actually touched their breast while they were asleep, and so over their clothes, and so it was a very difficult situation. But as we talked to other parents and different ones since then, a lot of families have said that they've had similar things happen in their families.
And so,
Freaking crazy.
Yeah.
What?
For us, of course, this is public shame that our son did this back 12, 13 years ago.
Now, Michelle is looking at Jim Bob with her mouth agape, like either she's hearing this for the first time or she doesn't like that he's saying this on TV, but I don't know.
What does she not like him saying?
Just like, we talk to a lot of families, like this
The
is
other families,
everyone
right?
does this.
Right.
And also the couch, like how someone was on the couch and he had touched someone, and she's just like,
Again, this was not rape or anything like that. This was like touching somebody over their clothes. There were a couple incidents where he touched them under their clothes, but it was like a few seconds, and then he came to us and was crying and told us what happened, and it was after that third time he came to us is where we really felt like, you know what, we have done everything we can as parents to handle this in-house.
That's crazy what he just said.
Yeah, no, this whole 40-minute interview is...
What is he saying right now? He's
Yeah.
like, sounds like he's trying to minimize the situation by adding more details. And the more he says, the worse it becomes.
Yeah, but like, I genuinely think he believes it, which makes it so much worse.
He doesn't care. He doesn't
No.
think it's a big deal.
They go to the church leaders after the third time. Why not the police? Jim Bob says,
You know what? As parents, you're not mandatory reporters. The law allows for parents to do what they think is best for their child. And so we got him out of the home and we sent him down to this place. And that was really probably the best decision that we made through this whole process, because it was at that place. This is the first time Josh had ever been out of the home. But I was thankful. The ray of hope was that Josh had came and told us, and that his heart was still soft, because we wouldn't have known about any of these things if he hadn't came and told us.
It gets disturbing to the point that Megyn Kelly becomes the voice of reason. And she's like, hey, can you just talk for a moment as the father of your daughters who are also the victims instead of like the father of the perpetrator? And he says,
I was so thankful, though, that Josh came and told us. And our girls, even though this was a very bad situation, as we've talked to other families who've had, other things happen, a lot of their stories were even worse.
I can't imagine my dad saying that. That's actually insane. Michelle talks about it as if it's something that happens in every single person's house, she says.
There were a lot of things that changed in our understanding as parents with, this first child, first son, to come to this place in his life. We're like, there's things that we've learned even since then that I think, you know what, we don't let boys babysit. We don't let, they don't play hide and seek together. Two don't go off and hide. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we put in place, and we said, you're not alone in a room with someone else. You always be out visible, and little ones don't sit on big boys' laps or people that you don't know, or even family members, unless it's your daddy, and so there's boundaries that we've learned.
She said they can't play hide and seeks anymore?
Yeah, if your children cannot play hide and seek together because you're scared that one of them is going to molest the other, you're doing something very wrong.
Whoa.
Megyn Kelly is asking, how could you, unfairly in their view, because this is Fox News, compare transgendered people to child molesters? Because that's what they've done. Suggest that they're child molesters knowing that you know about Josh. Just to give you a little bit of context, in 2014, so just a year before this interview, Michelle Duggar recorded a robocall, which is like it automatically calls a bunch of residents in the area with an automated message. And in it, she says,
Hello, this is Michelle Duggar. I'm calling to inform you of some shocking news that will affect the safety of Northwest Arkansas women and children. The Fayetteville City Council is voting on an ordinance this Tuesday night that would allow men, yes, I said men, to use women's and girls' restrooms, locker rooms, showers, sleeping areas, and other areas that are designated for females only.
Basically, transgender women. She's misgendering them and being transphobic.
I don't believe the citizens of Fayetteville would want males with past child predator convictions that claim they are female to have a legal right to enter private areas reserved for women and girls. I doubt that Fayetteville parents would stand for a law that would endanger their daughters or allow them to be traumatized by a man joining them in their private space. Parents, who do you want undressing next to your daughter at the public swimming pool's private changing area? I still believe that we are a society that puts women and children first. Will you speak up for protecting women and children? Call 575-8330 and tell the Fayetteville City Council members and Mayor Jordan to vote no on Ordinance 119.
Megyn Kelly's like, you just said every transgender woman is a fucking child predator that molests children. Meanwhile, they're not. And second of all, and like the fact that Megyn Kelly is the voice of reason, and this is so beyond me. Meanwhile, you're harboring a child predator in your house. Michelle responds with as many neurons firing in her brain as a tater tot.
I think that protecting young girls and not allowing young men and men in general to go into a girl's locker room is just common sense.
But this is different because you injected child molestation into it.
You weren't even just transphobic with it. You just called them all child molesters. Jim Bob, the king of semantics and traps.
I think you actually said pedophile in that, and actually a pedophile is an adult that preys on children. Joshua was actually 14 and just turned 15 when he did what he did, and I think the legal definition is 16 and up for being an adult preying on a child. So he was a child preying on a child.
Okay.
Exactly what did they do to protect their daughters? All they did from that point on, that we can tell as netizens, is they put locks. So they have this new house that they designed. And on one side, you have the boys' room. It's a common room with all the boys. The lock is from the outside. So they lock them in there at night, I guess. Which is, I mean, you're going to get arrested for that, because if there's a fire, they can't get out. Like, that's very dangerous. And then the girls' room, you actually have to walk through Jim, Bob, and Michelle's room to get to the girls' room.
Okay.
And if you want to know whose bright idea this interview was, look no further than Chad Gallagher. Chad Gallagher is a political consultant that focuses on crisis management and government relations. He was a large figure in Mike Huckabee's early political career. Earlier, I should say. That man is pretty old. He's also the current ambassador to Israel, and he's got like a very terrifying aura. He looks like President Snow from Hunger Games. I would not be personally surprised if he kind of acted like it too. But Chad Gallagher gets hired by the Duggars to help manage this full-blown PR crisis. The whole goal, according to Jill from her book, is, quote, Chad was the one who was setting up the Megyn Kelly interview to try and get it to where TLC would be cool with moving forward with the show. Obviously, Fox News was chosen because the Duggars viewers are super conservative. But the real reason is they decide that this is going to be the classic PR stunt response of redirect and deflect. The family's message is going to pivot from Josh's crimes to victimhood. So the Duggar parents are arguing that the release of the sealed juvenile records caused the victims to be further victimized. And all the sisters will say that is true. And I want to make it abundantly clear, I agree with it. But that being the only takeaway from this case is kind of absurd. As parents, to the victims as well. And if Jim, Bob, and Michelle really cared about the daughters that were victimized by Joshua, this is a very, very sick way of expressing that. Because right after Jim, Bob, and Michelle get off the counter stools, in walk 24-year-old Jill and 22-year-old Jessa. Mm-hmm. They're both married at this point. Jill is a mom, Jessa is expecting, and they're asked by Megyn Kelly, how old were you when Joshua inappropriately touched you? Jill says she was 12 and Jessa was 9 or 10. The whole energy of this interview, I mean, it's pretty clear, at least it feels from the audience perspective, that the girls do not want to do this interview, that there is some pressure element to this. I can't speak for Jessa, nor can I speak for Jill, but Jill has come out to say that she felt highly pressured into salvaging the family image. Her husband Derek states that Jill's participation in this interview is, quote, I wouldn't describe it as voluntary. It was more like being thrust into a suicide mission. You're gonna be harmed. But they wanted you to take the hit to ensure the show continues because it cannot fail. They would do anything to recoup their investment, even if it meant Jill was collateral damage. Jill says in her book that she's listening to Chad, the PR guy, and her dad talking about this Megyn Kelly interview. And the conversation goes something like this. No need for Josh to appear. No way. Maybe Michelle takes the lead. That could work. Who does the interview? It's gotta be a female. Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly would be great. Jill is asked about this in an Amazon Prime documentary called Shiny Happy People, and in it she seems really traumatized by the interview, that she felt pressure and she felt like she was the only one that could fix it. She says, it was like, okay, we need you to fall in line here and do these interviews for the show. Go here, do this thing and that thing to kind of like rally the troops and get it back together. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to help my parents, and I felt like I was the only one who could do this, and I was the only one who could fill that role. The interview is not something that I'm proud of. If I hadn't felt obligated to do one, do it for the sake of the show, and two, for the sake of my parents, I wouldn't have done it. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to help my parents. Jessa has not really spoken out about whether or not she too felt pressure from her parents to do the interview, though I do think that the internet has come to their own conclusion just by the way that they respond to Megyn Kelly's questions. Jessa states in the interview that she thinks the public is blowing the whole thing out of proportion. And again, I'm not like... This is what she says, and I think this is why people think that she was also pressured. She says that people are calling Joshua a monster, a child molester, and she says,
that is so overboard and a lie, really. I mean, people will get mad at me for saying that, but I'm like, I can say this, I was one of the victims, so I can speak out and I can say this and set the record straight here. Like in Josh's case, he was young boy in puberty and a little too curious about girls, and that got him into some trouble, and he made some bad choices, but really the extent of it was mild inappropriate touching on fully clothed victims, most of it while girls were
We
sleeping.
didn't even know about it until he went and confessed it to my parents, and
Neither one
they
of you
shared
knew.
it with us.
I think for us, our situation is so different than most girls in that he's very subtle in the way, like he knew in his mind my actions are wrong and I have bad intentions, but he was very sly, like the girls didn't catch on, you know? It was like, okay, if he catches a girl sleeping, you know, like a quick feel or whatever, or like, you know, if you're just not really aware, you know, in the situations that happened when the girls were awake, it was like they weren't aware of what was happening. It was very subtle. And so I think that for us, it's like, okay, we realize this is serious, but at the same time, it wasn't like a horror story or like this terrible thing where we're like, oh my goodness,
Scarred
we're
for
like,
life.
That's one of the headline covers, House of Horrors.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
That is not how you view it.
No, and I think my parents, they acted, I can see looking back as an adult now, they handled the situation very well.
Jill breaks down in the interview talking about all of this becoming public, and a lot of internet users agree on a few things. The police report, without better redactions, probably shouldn't have been made public. Even if InTouch got this police report, they should have further redacted it so that you could not decipher at all who any of the victims were. There were not enough redactions to safeguard the victims. It was pretty clear who everybody was. And then the internet agrees, though there is some debate about whether or not it should have been made public or not. That's up for debate. But they do agree with Jill, like there should have been better safeguards. However, netizens also notice from a trauma standpoint the fact that the girls are displaying more trauma about the information being made public while repeating very similar statements as their parents about the actual abuse. It seems like somewhat of an internet indication of how the parents told the girls to feel. Maybe not how they genuinely felt in that moment, is what the internet believes. It's all made worse by the fact that Josh is in the room while they're being interviewed by Megyn Kelly. Jill writes in her book, answering all of Megyn's questions with Josh watching from a couch just out of shot was like having a bandage ripped off a deep and open wound. It was agony, so painful that I didn't really pause to ask why Josh was allowed to be there in the first place. What was worse was the fact that I had hoped it would calm things down. It didn't. She says, I had no boundaries, no sense of what I needed to do to protect myself. I was terrified and didn't want to do the interview at all, but I felt like it was the only way to prove my love and commitment to my parents. I thought I knew how much it would cost me. And the worst part is, they do this interview and then the Ashley Madison scandal breaks. And Josh, he does like this really shitty apology that we covered in part 1 and 2, and then he just like goes to rehab. Jill says in an interview later,
watching the way that my parents protected my brother, but then used me and some of my sisters, it was hard, and it's still hard to swallow. There's like one point where I call my dad out about it, and I just say, like, you treat me worse than you treat my brother, my pedophile brother.
In the interview, they state, or were encouraged to state,
I think by the time that all of that was done, the report was made and everything, it was very obvious to everyone, us and our family, friends, officials, that Josh was a completely changed person. He had not gone down that path for years. He was humble before God, before us, before the officials that were involved.
So InTouch breaks the news. This interview airs, and then the Ashley Madison leak happens, and then 2015 continues to be a pivotal year for the Duggar family because of Joshua.
So after 2015, this all came out. They are done with the show.
Oh, we're still not even done with 2015.
Oh, I thought you were saying 2015. Okay,
Yeah, because right after the Ashley Madison leak, a lawsuit drops. Joshua Duggar is being sued by an adult film actress for assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Okay, I have to give you some context. Danica Dillon is the adult film actress, but she was also doing a lot of dancing and paid appearances for local clubs. She says that in March of 2015, so earlier this year, Joshua Duggar came in and paid about $600 for a lap dance. And again, this is also shocking. It just adds more elements to the sadistic quality of Joshua Duggar because his wife and kids are wearing $2 flip-flops. Like, they never buy anything new. They thrift. Anna Duggar will only cook him homemade meals to save money, and he's out here paying $600 for a lap dance. And then he offered her $1,500 for full intimacy at a local hotel. In an interview, she says,
he was very rough off with me. In all honesty, though it was consensual, it more or less felt like I was being raped. He was tossing me around like a rag doll, forcing me to go into positions.
And she says that she has no clue who this guy was. Like, she just thought it was a patron of the club. She was terrified. She runs into him a month later at a second club, and he's like profusely apologizing.
He walked up to me and he goes, "I am so sorry for the things that I did to you. I've been a fan of your movies. I've watched your scenes, that this is what you were into. I'm sorry if I ever mistreated you." And I believed him.
That night they end up being intimate again, and she says
he actually was a completely different person the second time. I mean, he was a little rough.
So the Duggars, they fight this lawsuit. They first state that Danica Dillon herself stated in the interviews that she never said no, and that technically it was consensual, that technically it was consensual sexual contact for payment. That was her description of it. And then they later state, well, Joshua Duggar was never even in the area that Danica Dillon said that he was. Eventually, Danica Dillon drops the case with prejudice, which means that this is something that she tried to fight, but it means that she can never refile a lawsuit against Joshua Duggars for these crimes, alleged crimes, which has a lot of people at the time believing that Danica Dillon lied. Because, oh, the Duggars are getting press. Oh, so much is happening with Josh Duggar. She's probably lying because she's an adult film actress. There is no public merit decision saying that Danica Dillon lied. She could have felt overpowered by the Duggars and their millions of dollars that they have ready to fight this case. She could have felt like her career, her profession, everything that she's ever done would be thrown in her face, and she'd be dragged through the mud like a lot of victims had this actually gone to trial. She could have received hush money payout that is not on record. Many netizens are commenting, I think her story is accurate, but I believe that maybe she got some details wrong and the lawyers punched holes in her story and they convinced her to drop it. I think it's not unexpected or unreasonable that she couldn't remember every single thing. So like, maybe it wasn't the exact date she said. Maybe it wasn't the exact club. That's what netizens are saying. People believe that Jim, Bob, and Michelle would do anything to get rid of Joshua's quote-unquote problems. But like, what do you expect from the Duggar parents? Jim, Bob, and Michelle. In a blog article, Michelle Duggar teaches her audience. She's giving advice to anybody watching if you're going to be a newlywed. She writes, number 1, this is my advice to all newlyweds. Be joyfully available. Whenever I speak with groups of other moms and married women, I always share this advice. It's been the best advice that I was ever given in regard to my relationship with my husband, Jim Bob. She says that one day her friend was telling her about it. You've got to remember this. Anyone can iron Jim Bob's shirt. Anyone can make his lunch for him. He can get his lunch somewhere else. But you are the only one who can meet that special need that he has in his life for intimacy. You're it. You're the only one. So don't forget that. He needs you. So when you're exhausted by the end of the day, maybe from dealing with the little ones, and you fall into the bed so exhausted at night, don't forget about him, because you and he are the only ones who can have that time together. No one else in the world can meet that need. So be available, and not just available, but be joyfully available for him. Smile and be willing to say, yes, sweetie, I'm here for you no matter what, even though you may be exhausted and big pregnant and you may not feel like he feels. I'm still here for you, and I'm going to meet that need because I know it's a need for you.
Wow.
She says that she will be sharing this information with her daughters who get married. But the crazier part is that this is written after the Ashley Madison scandal, and there are insider sources who know the family that said that Anna Duggar was fucking pissed because she thought that Michelle Duggar was saying it was her fault that she was not joyfully available, so Josh Duggar cheated on her. Which, Michelle Duggar, why are you even writing blog posts right now? This is not the time for this bullshit. The religious group that they belong to is the IBLP, which, more on this later, but it's led by a man named Bill Gothard. He thinks Cabbage Patch dolls are evil reincarnated. Cabbage Patch dolls, they look like little dolls, okay? They look cute. But he said that the creator is a warlock who bewitched every single one to carry the soul of the devil.
Okay.
So, like, you just know where that's going to go. Bill Gothard goes on to create these wisdom booklets. This teaches the followers everything. They're all homeschooled. It teaches them what to wear, how to choose the right toothbrush, and detrimentally, what to do in the event of being sexually assaulted. In the wisdom booklet, they have this whole part on what to do, and it asks, what part of your being did the offender damage? And which part of yourself did you damage with that bitterness and guilt? And it asks you to ask the question, why did God let it happen? And maybe because we're all fucking dim-witted, it gives you multiple choice answers. A, immodest stress. B, indecent exposure. 3, being out from protection of your parents. D, being with evil friends. And if you're not at fault, congratulations, this is a learning lesson for you. Quote, God compensated physical abuse with spiritual power. What is being mighty in spirit? Greater faith, spiritual discernment, genuine love, wisdom and understanding, creativity, energy and enthusiasm, joy, inner peace. It reads that a reason for your bitterness after essay is he damaged your body. Important step, dedicate your body to God. If you had to choose no physical abuse or being mighty in spirit, what would you choose? So he's saying after you've been assaulted, you're going to become mighty in spirit. Would you give up not being essayed? Or would you rather be mighty in spirit? Just to give you an idea of how deeply followers believed in this brain dead concept, and I'm not blaming the people that grew up in this concept because it's for the adults to realize, hey, I'm not going to teach my kid this. Another higher up in the IBLP leadership ladder, he runs a counseling camp. He says, you know, what you're hearing about Josh is a stupid thing that a little boy did. In the seminar, Bill Gothard calls it natural curiosity. Had it been as traumatic as they make it out to be, the sisters would have been bitter. And the sisters are not bitter. In another wisdom booklet, there's a little Q&A portion that reads, what if a wife is a victim of her husband's hostility? Basically, what if you're a domestic violence victim? The answer reads, there is no victim if we understand that we are called to suffer for righteousness because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps. Christ was not a victim. He willingly gave his life for us. Christ's life teaches us how to suffer. Question, if my husband violates God's moral laws against our children, shouldn't I at least separate from him in order to protect our children? A father's authority in the home is derived from and governed by the laws of God. If he violates these laws, God uses higher powers to discipline him. More on these wisdom booklets later, but it's very clear Jim, Bob, and Michelle, along with their son Joshua, are not at all the wholesome family that they keep trying to shove down our throats on TLC. And that is why, in 2015, TLC cancels the show. And it all starts because there is sin in the camp.
Wait, when was he arrested?
2021. There is only one rule in this story. Survive. In the new Netflix film Apex, Charlize Theron is Sasha, a woman testing her limits in the Australian wilderness, but what starts as a test of endurance turns into a deadly game with a ruthless and lethal predator played by Taron Egerton, whose familiarity with the landscape gives him a chilling advantage. For Sasha, every decision is a matter of survival, but her resilience and intelligence make her a force to be reckoned with. Apex, only on Netflix, April 24th. If you've been following for a while, you know that we had a limited time launch with Shopify for Grandpa Mingo's art studio. We sold prints and original pieces painted by hand by my husband's grandfather, whom we lovingly call Grandpa Mingo. But starting our small business was something that we could not have done without Shopify. Most of us are not tech people. Maybe you just aren't either and you just want to share your art like Grandpa Mingo. And please do. I see so many DMs from you guys with the cutest little handmade bag charms or artwork. And that's the amazing thing about Shopify. You can still be a small art business without having to be an expert in software and technology. Shopify is the best one-stop commerce platform for your business, big or small, with the world's best converting checkout. Manage inventory, marketing, shipping, processing returns, and beyond. Basically everything you need all in one place. And it just makes your life easier and your business operations so much smoother. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/rotten. Go to shopify.com/rotten. That's shopify.com/rotten. April 29th, 2021, Homeland Security investigators walk into a car dealership and they have a federal search warrant for all of Joshua Duggar's devices. The first thing Joshua Duggar does is reach for his phone to call his attorney, but before he can, the agent sees it because the phone is now evidence. Then it comes the big question. Before the agents tell Joshua Duggar what they're even investigating, he opens his mouth and he asks, "What is this about? Has somebody been downloading child pornography?"
What?
It's the kind of question that answers itself, but it doesn't even matter because based off of all of his devices, the evidence is already there. It is uncovered that Joshua Duggar used a computer, bypassing Covenant's Eyes, the software he and his wife have to make sure that he doesn't watch legal, explicit videos featuring adults. He bypasses that application, goes on to the dark web to download hundreds of CSAM images. Law enforcement, they track the images to a used car dealership that he works at, and on his computer, there's that evidence that he downloaded and watched these files. Multiple videos of full-on assault, at least 65 photographs of CSAM where one depicts a child being locked in a dog kennel. The victims are between 18 months to 12 years old. He is charged with 1 count of receiving CSAM and 1 count of possessing CSAM. Just a few days before his arrest, Joshua and Anna Duggar announced that they were expecting their 7th child. And he has now been arrested for downloading and possessing images of toddlers, children being abused, while celebrating the fact that he's going to be adding another child into his family. The judge even later tells Josh, the ages of the children depicted in the downloaded materials are very close to the ages of your children. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reasons that Joshua is nicknamed Pest on Reddit forums. One of them being he just won't go down without squirming and fighting and trying to take everyone down with him too.
How did they even find this? Is this all come from the 2015 stuff? They just keep on looking into him, or someone tipped him off, or?
No. So a lot of how CSAM is caught is they have this huge database where every CSAM picture, screenshot, thumbnail, video is logged with a specific metadata code. And that code is then shared with all the local police stations and all of the internet service providers. And so if anybody's device downloads or sends out one of those codes, even if they're using a VPN or whatever they try to do, dark web, it usually flags. So then law enforcement will get a flag in a specific area. Then they'll go to the ISPs, the internet service providers, and they'll bring a search warrant. They're like, we got a flag in this area, so we need all of the IP addresses so we can see whose it is. Mm-hmm. And then they usually come with an IP address, and that leads to a physical location. And then they go to that police station in that jurisdiction, and then they go and arrest. So they work with the police station, but it's Homeland Security.
So this wasn't related to everything that happened?
No. No one was specifically looking into Joshua Duggar. So that actually is more terrifying because this is just an off chance he got caught.
Yeah.
This is not, oh, we've been building a case on him and this is the first time he's done something, so we're going to get him. It's just, this is just a coincidence.
Wow.
Yeah.
This guy.
The first problem is the evidentiary hearing. This is the day before the trial. There is a 3-hour hearing discussing whether or not Joshua's prior molestation of his sisters can be admissible during the trial. Bobby Holt, remember? Joshua was courting their daughter. She's the wife of Jim Holt, also weird politician. She testified about finding out about the molestation. Jim Bob is also called into court, and his relationship with memory seems to be highly strategic. He largely states that he doesn't remember much.
Jim Bob?
Yeah. The dad is like, I don't remember. It was just years and years ago, a long time ago. He's almost diminishing the severity of it. The court even states, the court found Mr. Duggar's selective lapse in memory to be not credible. He was obviously reluctant to testify against his son. It must run in the family because when Joshua was interviewed before his arrest, the way he responds to questions is eerily calm. He's just asking.
I mean, I have quite a few questions about it, but I don't know, how much you can divulge. But I'm curious. You're saying there's images being uploaded or images being downloaded?
The IP address from this had a lot of CSAM associated to it in a peer-to-peer software program. He's like, well, I do have a peer-to-peer software program. So peer-to-peer means that you can transmit files without going through a third party. It would be unencrypted or something like that. I don't know. I don't use peer-to-peer software programs like that, okay? Not that every time you use a peer-to-peer software program, you're doing something illegal. A lot of people do it because they just don't want to be surveilled. And a lot of people might need to do it because certain areas, the surveillance is, you get it. But Josh is like, oh yeah, I have that. And he just admits it very casually. Doesn't everyone? He's also like, also, I use Tor, which is how people access the dark web, if you will. And he's like
a Tor browser or a Tor, we upload stuff for our cars and things like that.
So he's like, I use the dark web for our car dealership. And then the agents are like, are you talking about torrent or Tor? Because those are very different things. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know anything.
I guess what is the scope is what I've been trying to say. Like, is there something going on my devices where that's been something's accessed or something's downloaded or uploaded or something like that?
The officers are like, well, that's what led us here. He later says so casually,
I don't want to say that I'm guilty or not. I'm just not saying, accessing inappropriate content at some point, at any point in my life.
Which is crazy. I mean, I will say that I will Google some crazy things for cases, but I can definitively say to a cop, I have never accessed anything inappropriate in my lifetime. But he's like, I can't say, for sure. I don't want to definitively, I don't want to put that in the, you know what I mean? It's like, what do you mean? I think most people can definitively say that. Regardless, Joshua's history of molesting his sisters is allowed to be admitted into trial. But the pest does not give up. During the trial, he tries to point the finger. His attorneys basically do the whole, this is a classic whodunit. Whodunit and downloaded the CSAM. Am I right? They even bring in people from Covenant's Eyes to testify how the operating system only works on Windows, but Joshua went and got Linux, I don't know, to bypass any and all detection that the software could have. The password used was allegedly the same password Josh used for the family's Instagram account. So the same password that he used to hide the CSAM is the same Instagram family account password. And then Josh and his attorneys try to suggest that a former employee who happened to be a sex offender probably did this, but they don't call him to the stand because the judge is like, well, what are you going to ask him when you call him to the stand? You can't just point your finger at somebody and then say, well, maybe it's them. Well, you're not allowed to bring up his previous connection if that's what you're trying to do. You're not allowed to bring up the fact that he was a previous sex offender. And they're like, then don't bring him in. Which, the court, quote, surmises the only reason for calling him was to reveal his sex offense conviction to the jury. The defense also starts arguing that Joshua should be acquitted because there's no proof that he actually viewed the material. Quote, Mr. Duggar argues that the court should enter a judgment of acquittal as to both counts of conviction because the jury was not presented evidence sufficient to show he actually viewed any CSAM. Basically saying that they need to show proof that he viewed it to establish needed convictions. And their last throw it at the wall and see if it sticks is the most nonsensical. Joshua Duggar is an Apple guy. There's no CSAM on any of his Apple devices because it's not his. During the trial, it stated multiple times the files that he was downloading were, quote, torture and depicted victims in visible pain and screaming. One of the downloads was connected to Daisy's destruction, and the special agent that worked on this case testified that it was in, quote, top 5 of the worst that I've had to examine. The defense...
Was there any conversation or investigation or anything about his kids?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
The defense tried to argue that these statements should be excluded. They want to exclude any opinion by law enforcement officers that certain CSAM images are considered worse than others. I guess they're trying to say worse is subjective. But the prosecutors, they bring in proof. Every time Josh would text his wife that he was going to be late from work or that he was being held up somewhere, soon after, his computer would download videos of children. Additionally, through cell tracking towers, the prosecutors were able to prove that 1, these videos were downloaded in the car lot outside of Joshua's workplace, and 2, Joshua was the only one there at the time that he's downloading these files, and 3, he's texting his wife that he's going to be home late. Nobody else is there, not another employee, nobody. It's also revealed during the trial that Joshua would frequent Reddit snark pages, so a lot of people started calling him names for that reason.
How did they find out about that?
I think it was going through the Covenant Eyes. They were testifying of his internet browser history.
Oh, wow.
He's obviously found guilty, but during sentencing, Michelle, of course, writes a letter to the judge asking leniency for our son, our firstborn son. In short, it has everything that you expect it to have. She states that she wants to share information about Josh's character that may not be fully known to the court, which I think the court knows enough about Josh's character. But nevertheless, Josh has a tender heart and he's compassionate with others. If someone is having a difficult time, he is the first one to encourage or try to help them in a tangible way. Yet nobody's trying to lock him up for being a negative Nancy, okay? He's a child predator. She's like, he's always positive. He's got a positive attitude. She says that Josh deserves leniency because he's been giving money to a widow friend of theirs for several years now, and he's also great at work. Side note, he was downloading CSAM in the parking lot of his workplace. She continues, he has set a good example of applying himself eagerly to his work and in many other responsibilities he carries as a husband and father. We ask that he would be reunited with his wife and family in a timely manner. Thank you, Your Honor, for taking these thoughts into consideration. Anna Duggar has a brother-in-law. So her sister married this guy, and he is very big in the fundamentalist world. His name is David Waller, and he is a senior pastor at the Fair Park Baptist Church. He writes a whole letter, and that whole letter just goes on and on about how good of a person Josh Duggar is. And why? Quote, it was Josh Duggar who offered to help me finish a large deck project for our in-laws, giving his time and money during Christmas week to complete a large deck with a handicap accessible ramp. It was his generosity and personal initiative that designed the cable railing system for the deck to keep everyone safe and allow wheelchair access to the Keller's family's double-wide trailer home. He goes on to create like a laundry list of all the things Josh has helped with, including decorating this pastor's laundry room. I didn't know interior design is like a sign of virtue. Then he continues that he once went on a road trip with Josh and his family, and one of Josh's kids were misbehaving. Quote, I listened as Josh Duggar stopped the vehicle, took his little one aside privately and lovingly, and patiently talked with his child. I was in awe at the tone and love that he showed. On a number of occasions, I've been in Josh Duggar's home for an overnight visit. I've observed him gather his children and read to them from the Holy Scriptures, the Bible, then pray, and then have a beautiful time singing songs about Jesus while playing the piano. This is why I despise character witness statements. When it comes to crimes against children, you feel safe around him? Great. He's also nice to elderly people? Great. He loves cats? Because that's not the demographic he's abusing. His victims are children, not you, a full-grown adult, and how helpful he is with the porch renovation will never offset the crimes that he committed against children. I just don't understand. The prosecutors have responded really critically of the character letter, stating that none of them, 0 of them, address Josh's actual crimes or the victims. May 25th, 2022, Joshua Duggar is sentenced to 151 months, 12 and a half years in federal prison, followed by 20 years of supervised release with the condition that he is not permitted to have unsupervised contact with minors, including his own children. He cannot have a computer, and he definitely cannot have any explicit material on his computer of any kind, even the legal ones. The judge even states, this is some sick stuff. After the conviction, Jim Bob and Michelle state to, I don't know who. Okay. The entire ordeal has been very grievous. Today, God's grace through the love and prayers of so many has sustained us. Our hearts and prayers are with anyone who has ever been harmed through CSAM. In the days ahead, we will do all we can to surround our daughter-in-law, Anna, and her children with love and support. As parents, we will never stop praying for Joshua and loving him. As we do with all our children in each of life's circumstances, we place our trust in God. Thank you for your prayers. Who are you saying that to? It's blasphemous, okay? A federal agent also says, possessing and viewing CSAM is not a victimless crime. Every time it's downloaded or shared, it perpetuates the trauma and re-victimizes the child. They're all acting like this is some victimless crime. In fact, they're acting like Joshua is the victim of the crime. And all while this is happening, Jim Bob randomly decides to run for the Arkansas State Senate. He announces his run a few weeks before Josh's trial kickstarts, and he says, now more than ever, we need a bold voice that is pro-family, pro-business, pro-gun, and pro-life. It's time for conservatives to demand courageous leadership that puts Arkansas families, jobs, and our constitutional liberties first.
What in the world is happening?
Yeah, he also does his favorite thing that a lot of right-wing politicians and influencers do when they're caught up in actual federal crimes. Cancel culture and the radical left want to keep us from being involved in politics. No, we want that because your son is committing crimes against children. How's that pro-family or pro-life? He says, I will not allow the liberal left, social media, or fake news to define me and my family. The liberals scream, it's my body, when they want to end the life of an unborn child, but would gladly force mandatory vaccines upon everyone without hesitation.
So you think he ran just to...
Nobody knows. Some people think he ran to take the news off of Joshua Duggar. That this is even more shocking that he's running, that it'll diminish the shockability of the trial. Other people think that he just doesn't care about any of his kids.
I see.
Yeah, I think that he should go stuff his face with the tater tot casserole and stop being such a demonic presence in everybody's lives. But unsurprisingly, he loses. And the Duggar story continues. About 5 weeks before the guilty verdict, Anna Duggar gives birth to their 7th child, Madison. And everyone had hoped that the Duggars would not make the headlines anymore, but they do, with 2 more arrests, all involving children. Between 2021 to 2026, a lot is happening. Even between 2015 to 2026, even more has happened, and I just need to get everybody caught up. Several of the Duggar children have publicly distanced themselves from the church and their parents, the church being the teachings of IBLP, Bill Gothard. Bill Gothard, in my humble opinion, is like certified insane, and I mean zero offense to it. I grew up in a religious house, so I grapple with some level of religious trauma, and I still think that religion is an insanely beautiful thing, and I cast no judgment on anybody who is religious, but Bill Gothard makes my brain melt. He, in my opinion, ran a cult. Perhaps my definition of a cult is different from anybody else, but just from my limited research, I think that he was running a cult. And apparently, Bill Gothard would do this thing where if there is a stain on the carpet, he wanted young women in the church to get on their hands and knees and clean the stains out of the carpets with a rag or a spoon. So someone who used to work at the main church, he thought the stains were the problem, right? So he goes ahead and he cleans the carpet with industrial cleaner to get out all the stains. And like the young women, they would always be complaining because their backs were, aching from all the cleaning the carpet, which rightfully. And so they're so happy. To which, quote, Gothard visited the center and was livid to see no girls cleaning by hand. He ordered the center leadership staff to round some girls up to start cleaning. It was something that Gothard just wanted to see. He didn't care that I would come at night and industrially clean the carpet and get rid of all the stains. He wanted to see girls on their hands and knees scrubbing with rags and spoons. And I think that it was maybe a recruiting tactic. I imagine very specific types of people would walk in with their wives and their children and think, now this is a good God-fearing church. This is the type of example I want to set in my family. And the Duggar family were very, very close with Bill Gothard, and they followed his teachings quite literally to a T, such as Bill Gothard would state, when a young person listens to rock music, like a rock song, even a Christian rock song, they give Satan a little square in their soul. The soul is depicted like a chessboard, and you give up one of those squares to Satan. He's playing chess with his soul, and we're just trying to survive in this economy. He's also racist, in my opinion, okay? Jesus Christ, nobody is more cease and desist happy than a religious cult leader, but I feel he is racist, and that's why he hates rock music. His teachings read, to the delinquency of minors, the characteristic offbeat in today's rock music has been traced to the satanic rituals in the jungles of West Africa. It was this type of drumbeat which certain tribe members were specifically trained for in order to open the people to demonic control. So you can't listen to rock music, but you also can't be a whore. And Bill Gothard's definition of a whore is showing a shoulder. If any sort of assault or bad thing happens to a woman, it's because a woman was showing a shoulder and leading men astray.
But is being pedophile okay with him?
That is natural curiosity, my friend. Just kidding. Not trying to get another one. Okay, one leader of the IBLP teaching states, the problem is that men have a problem with their eyes. The solution is to avoid eye traps. The shorter the skirt, the more vicious the trap. So the solution, right? If you were to tell me that all men have a problem with their eyes, which is not what I'm saying at all, but if that were the case, then the most logical solution would be to blindfold all men or gouge out their eyes. That would make more sense in her logic, if that's the real problem. But instead, she says it's the women's fault. They have in the wisdom booklet, which is their teachings, pictures of women wearing various different outfits, and people are forced to ask, can you identify the eye traps in these pictures? What could you do to alter them? But maybe it's not what you're wearing. Maybe it's that little eye twitch thing you do. Like, the spasm of the muscle in the eye, but they consider that winking, and only whores wink. Yeah, you can't wink. It's a very whorish thing to do. And quote, those who fall to her whoredom are stripped of resources and vibrancy of life. And what do whores get? Crabs. Quote, the public lice often called the crab is only one of several parasites which can be transmitted through immorality. I mean, the logic is sound if you have the genetic makeup of a russet potato. They've also said some other controversial things such as the abortions in America right now, there is currently a baby holocaust. Bill Gothard states, the one who has made porn popular in America has done more damage to America than 100 Hitlers. Ginger Duggar has since left IBLP and denounced Bill Gothard's teachings, and she says,
I was in the very back row of a 15-passenger van and somebody turned on Christian worship music. And I was like, this is the day we all die. And I was crying in the back seat of a car. Like, that's how shook up I was over it.
Jill says that whenever she wore pants, that was seen as a small act of independence. And quote, anyone who is making decisions for themselves that the parents don't give their blessing, that is seen as rebellious. One former member of the IBLP says, girls were taught that boys were almost unable to control their lust. It was our responsibility to help them control it by dressing modestly. And if we didn't, we just got what we had coming to us. One victim of IBLP says that when a man shows up in your life and decides he wants you, it's not up to you to say no. If you don't want him back, you have to come to terms with it because this is surely what God wants for you. Dangerously, the wisdom booklet teaches that in the event of unfaithfulness in the marriage, quote, allow for divorce and or remarriage is basically destroying someone's relationship with Christ and the church. An article on the IBLP's website reads, serve and appeal to your husband. And it gives these like short biblical references, but it reads, you must ask God for a plan on how you can serve your king in order to gain his heart and present your appeal. They talk about a woman named Esther from the book. It was from the place of service that Esther was able to make her appeal. As she served the king, she gained his attention. He was now ready to listen to her heart. And whoever is writing this article is a woman, and she writes, this area is a challenge for me. I tend to serve my children before my husband. To be honest, most of the time I'm so busy that my home becomes like a self-service gas station for everyone, which isn't good. Once again, ask the Lord what you can do to serve your husband as Esther did. Ladies, fast, pray, cry out to the Lord, surrender to him, and serve your husband. Now, the mind-boggling aspect of this is it's written under an article focusing on what to do if your husband is not sorry for having an affair. Or in IBLP speak, quote, what can I do if my husband is not repentant over moral failure? I mean, clearly, this is not a safe space for women, with one former member saying, there was never, hey, what do you want? It was always, God wants this, and if you don't like it, you need to submit and be broken. People ask me why I stayed. I was isolated with no one to help me leave. I was brainwashed into believing God would hurt me if I didn't do everything I was told to do. And unfortunately, Bill Gothard has been accused of SA by like 30 women. And I could just do another multi-part series on Bill Gothard because...
Is he still...
He has stepped down from the IBLP church, but I don't know how much money he made off with. At one point, IBLP was like a $90 million institution. But with that said, I mean, some Duggars have remained religious, but just not following Bill Gothard. Others have spoken up. Some have been vocal. Others have found themselves in other scandals of their own. So I'm just going to run you through the major scandals. Jaina ends up getting charged with child endangerment. Nobody knew what was going on. There were all sorts of theories circulating because now Duggar and child endangerment, it seems synonymous with one kind of thing. And Jaina makes an online statement. I'm only sharing this because the media has been having a field day with it all. The raw facts. I was babysitting a few months ago when one of the children wandered outside alone. A passerby who saw the child called the police. This resulted in a written citation as well as a follow-up with child welfare, who concluded that it was an accident and the child was unharmed. They recognized it was a case of a child slipping out of the house when you turn your back for a moment. It all happened so quickly. It was so scary. I'm grateful for law enforcement and those who protect and serve our community. I was certainly never arrested like some may have implied. In the end, I was just upset at myself that this happened at all. But so thankful it all ended safely, and that's truly what mattered the most to me. Then you have Jill and Derek. They have been the most outspoken about the Duggar family and everything that they've been through. They've also had their fair share of critics online. They went through a missionary phase where a lot of people said that they just like kind of played white savior. So they would go into different countries and they recount stories of how they would treat their bathroom as the safe room. And there's this one incident where they hear this huge metal clinking. They rush Jill into the bathroom. Derek is ready to fight. Jill is messaging her family to pray. Turns out a shower rack fell down. But you know, it could have been one of the terrifying POCs out there, basically.
What? What is happening?
Okay, this is maybe like the nuance of it is lost. Because I grew up in a church that would do missions. And a lot of it just turns into Americans going into countries, typically in South America, Central America, and then acting terrified for their godforsaken lives, even though they are the ones that wanted to go there in the first place. But they're acting so terrified, like, oh my God, how can I be here? My life is at risk. And then they're saving people at the same time. I don't know how they do that. How do you be so terrified of the country that you're going into and then save people at the same time who don't even need to be saved? Okay.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. I get it now.
Yeah, so like all these stories that they're sharing is really riling people up because it's like you were that dramatic over a shower rack that fell down?
Yeah.
Like what were you expecting? POCs to break in and what? Like what is the stigma that you have in your head? What are they going to do? They also like do multiple episodes where they go on missionaries and they just talk about they're terrified for their lives, like they could die at any moment. And I'm like,
right.
Okay. Are you like, what's happening? Derek is also deeply, deeply transphobic. I don't know if that's present, past, but he was to a very high degree. He literally targeted a young 16-year-old girl, a transgender girl named Jazz Jennings, stating, "Transgender is a myth. Gender is not fluid. It's ordained by God." A lot of people had their flabbergasted by that tweet because technically you could argue that God is a myth. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just saying read the room a little before you start tweeting some weird nonsense. He also just like continues to bully and misgender Jazz Jennings for no apparent reason other than being a giant transphobic person. Also, I will say, as someone who grew up in the South in a very religious area, going to church all the time, I can to some degree have some level of understanding for people who grow up in these bigoted spaces that then believe these things because they are instilled with fear and all of these other tactics to manipulate children at a young age to believe these things until they become an adult. But I just don't think he was 28 bullying a 16-year-old girl. Like, this is not like he's 16 and talking to other kids his age. He was 28 years old bullying a 16-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. He also stated that Planned Parenthood was a hate group, and he celebrated a baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple.
These are all on Twitter?
Yeah.
Wow.
He hasn't necessarily apologized formally, but they've kind of like in subtle ways walked back a lot of their views. They've stated that they have a ton of friends now who are not Christian and are even part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Just because you disagree with someone that you can't be friends.
I hate that. I hate that so much. Why are you disagreeing about someone else's existence? Like, you shouldn't have a fucking opinion. Like, what does that mean? Like, I disagree that you're a real person? That you can't do that. It's just not rooted in logical. Anyway, they also start saying that, well, everyone's a sinner anyway.
Because ultimately we're all sinners.
So I don't know if you can really call that. Like, they're standing firm that being gay is kind of a sin. So there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah. And like I said, I think with a lot, maybe of the younger Duggars, it's easier to give not leeway, no excuses, but I think they're too damn old. Like, you could argue, well, I grew up in this type of situation where this was normalized. You're too damn old to be doing this.
Yeah.
Like, especially with the internet these days, get online, watch a video, go help yourself, get a therapist. You're so damn weird. Jessa, there is a situation on Instagram where she had posted where she went to the Holocaust Museum. Within 200 words, she's able to express that the Holocaust Museum was depressing and sobering, which everybody agrees with. But then she goes on to somehow state that racism is because of evolutionary theory, and she ignores the fact that the Holocaust was the result of a deeply Christian nation, but then turns it around to say that we need to be the voice for those who cannot speak up, #pro-life. Then it's revealed. So because, and you know what, I think there's just so much with the Duggars. Like, there are some people who have a level of understanding for them because maybe they also grew up in very strict religious environments where this was taught to you. And so you almost go down that route. But I think as an adult, there's really no excuse to self-educate. But also, when you are so vocal, you're gonna get thrown back at you. Like, if you're throwing shit at other people, you better expect it's going to get thrown back at you. And this is why this becomes a whole topic. So it is uncovered that Jessa underwent a medical procedure, which is called a DNC. And if you want to be very technical in the medical sense, it is technically an abortion. Jessa and Michelle have made some really offensive comments comparing abortion to the Holocaust, calling it the baby Holocaust. And Jessa has responded online writing, "Women have DNCs for many reasons, not all of which involve killing a living human being. My baby's heart had stopped stopped beating 3 weeks before I had a D&C. Each person is created in the image of God, Genesis 1:27, and to purposefully destroy a baby in the womb is an affront to the God who created that life. There's a world of a difference between someone dying and someone being killed. To equate one to the other, and to a mother grieving the loss of her baby, no less, is severely distasteful. There is a world of a difference between a mortician and a murderer. Even a child understands the difference between the two. So a lot of people started dragging her about the D&C. And I mean, I don't know. You could just argue like, oh, should we have come at a woman in her time of grief, of losing a fetus, or she kind of deserved it? I don't know. It's up to you. And then Ginger and her husband Jeremy have come out publicly against Bill Gothard, and they have joined a different denomination in Christianity that some also liken to a cult, with a lot of people believing that Ginger traded in one cult for another. Her husband has also gotten into a little bit of trouble. He is an ex-soccer player with a criminal history. He was drunk and he tried to assault a cop. He was not successful. So the officers were like, you're drunk, get your shit together. And then he grabbed one of the cop's arms in a forceful manner. He was arrested. But he's now like a pastor, and he says very weird things like, there's a reality show about a family in California or something, and they've got all these kids and whatever. It's a show. But one of the little boys was 5 years old and decided he didn't want to be a boy anymore. But now he really wants to be a girl. And so the parents say, okay, well, if you're a girl, you're a girl. So they go along with it. Well, that is a sign that the child is ruling. The child is. The parents have no discipline over the child or no instruction of what's wrong and right. It's just whatever you feel, you do. And now you've got a child who's barely come to the cognitive understanding of the world the last couple of years, determining that how they were created is wrong. And they're going to redo that. How do you lead as a parent then? He says, quote, biblically mandated discipline has absolutely no physical consequence to the child, and it's to drive the foolishness from them. And it's called abuse in our day. He also goes on to like do a whole weird Instagram video about Kanye's new album, Jesus is King. He says he listened to the whole album and he saw messages from people saying like, oh, well, Jesus would never save Kanye because Kanye is still the same filthy sinner that he's always been, which he believes is wrong because Jesus forgives all. Jedediah, this one right here.
Uh-huh.
He runs for office in Arkansas State Representatives, 2020 standard platform. He's just like pro-life, pro-gun, pro-religion. In his Vote For Me video, he says,
hello, District 89. This is Jed Duggar, running to be your next state representative. I will fight for sound economic policies, push for more tax relief for all Arkansans, and advocate for conservative values. I'm a Christian, and I will stand up for religious liberties. I'm pro-life, and I will be an advocate for the unborn, and I will always defend our Second Amendment. With your prayer, support, and help, I look forward to serving you as a strong conservative voice in Little Rock.
They wipe the floor with him. He goes up against a Democrat, Megyn Godfrey, and this is like Arkansas is usually the parts they're from are very conservative and mostly Republican. I mean, Megyn Godfrey flipped her seat Democratic. And I think it was like 20 years that a Republican held that seat. She flipped it for the first time in 20 years. Yeah.
How
and
so?
She's
just really good.
Fucking competent. She's like a PhD. She has a master's degree. I think she was a teacher. She just knows what she's talking about. And you know what he does to this accomplished woman?
Uh-huh.
He calls her liberal princess, and he starts doing all these ads of like, are we really going to vote for liberal princess over here? And then so the Democrats are like, hey, bunk bed Jed, why don't you shut the fuck up? So they call him bunk bed Jed because as he's running for office, he's still sharing a bunk bed with his brother.
Jeremiah?
I don't know if it was Jeremiah, but it was somebody.
What?
Yeah. And he knows nothing about anything. It's like empty up here. So, yeah. And then in 2026, like a few months ago, Anna Duggar has finally come back online. So she was largely gone from the public eye after Joshua Duggar's arrest and conviction later in 2022. She is now breeding golden retrievers in her backyard and posting on social media again. Netizens don't really know how to feel about her. Some people think, again, you're too damn old to be doing this and you have children. And I will say it is always a parent and not a mom, and like I think it's always thrust upon the mom, but it is also a dad's duty. It is always a parent's duty to protect their own children. So that type of criticism I think is warranted, but some people are just conflicted on whether they despise or not. Anna Duggar. One comment reads, I just think this is all around sad. Maybe even a bit tragic in regards to Anna. Like, she married this guy so young, and I remember the courting and early marriage stuff, and she was just so happy, and it was cringy and culty and weird. But there she was, marrying into fundamentalist Christian royalty and getting away from her family. She was like really all in on this. She believed in this. She was excited for this. And the only time these girls get to feel special in their lives is when they court, marry, and have babies. And now what does she have to show for it? What can she do, choking on the Kool-Aid as much as she is? Now, with all these kids, she is utterly and helplessly dependent on the Duggars. When you're that brainwashed, there's no moment when the penny drops and you're free. Freedom can also suck. It's unfamiliar, scary, and expensive. People also believe the Duggars will do everything they can to make her stay. They'll put so much pressure on her until she's metaphorically pinned to the ground and paralyzed by the crush. Anna is responsible for protecting her children, but tragically means something different to her than to us. It's likely Anna believes it is her fault for not being joyfully available, and that at least with the Duggar Empire's help, she can clothe and feed her children. And even when Joshua Duggar comes out, he will not be able to have unsupervised visits with any minor children, including his own. We don't know if that's why she's staying or if she genuinely just still loves Joshua Duggar after.
I mean, when he comes out, none of them will be minors.
No, they will. So she gave birth to Madison during the trial. Yeah.
Oh. How long he gets? 13 years?
12.
12. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. 12 and a half.
Wow, that is actually crazy.
Yeah. And then it happens again. March 18th, 2026. Joseph Duggar is arrested. And everybody loses their mind. Like, I think, in 2015 when this was happening with Joshua Duggar, and then later in 2021, I think most of this news, it did become mainstream news, but it really stayed within this Duggar universe of people who religiously followed the Duggars, and I don't mean that pun intended. But with this 2026 arrest, people are starting to feel like, okay, there is like something very nefarious happening, maybe not even just in this family, but in the IBLP. Like, people need to look into everything. The charges stem from events that allegedly happened in 2020. It is alleged that in 2020, during a family vacation in Panama City Beach, Florida, Joseph allegedly repeatedly suggests that this 9-year-old girl sit on his lap.
Who's this girl?
We don't know. Some people have made guesses. I would not.
Okay.
Yeah. He had her sit next to him on the couch, covered her with a blanket, and rubbed her thighs and grazed her private parts. She finally tells her dad about it as a 14-year-old girl. So in 2026, she's like, Dad, this is what happened to me. Her father confronts Joseph, and he confesses, allegedly, to the dad. And this is when the dad calls the police. The police are like, call Joseph again and have him admit it while we're listening. Allegedly, he acknowledges his actions once more. The next day, he is arrested. This comes as a huge shock to most people because Joseph has always been known as the quieter, nicer brother. He was relatively low-key up until all of this. He's also publicly condemned his older brother Joshua for his actions. On the family website, Joseph's page just reads, I recently finished my real estate broker's license and I've enjoyed getting to work in the real estate industry. We've also been building houses to sell. I love getting to work outside with my hands. So people are like, what is happening? And I think it's so reminiscent of the crimes that Joshua Duggar committed against his own sisters that people are starting to wonder what's going on. Does everybody just know that this is a thing that's happening? And then Jim Bob's previous remarks about how this is like a lot of families go through this. So a lot of people online are speculating if Joseph's wife, Kendra, knew what was going on. And if she did, why didn't she turn him in? And a lot of people who have been following the Duggar universe, I guess, they have been pinpointing when Kendra had stopped posting online on Instagram, she took a break. And people are wondering if maybe she took a break around that time in 2020, 2021 because of everything that was going on in her private life. Like maybe she found out about it then. But if she found out about it then, why didn't she go to the police? Is it the same thing that Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar have been doing where they don't go to the police for crimes against children? And alarmingly, they have 4 children together. And then 2 days after Joseph Duggar's arrest, Kendra Duggar is arrested. And people are like, okay, that means she knew about it, right?
What's going on?
She's actually arrested for a completely different charge, 4 counts of child endangerment and false imprisonment. Initially, there was some relief that she was not arrested for similar crimes as Joseph Duggar or for participating or co-conspiring to let him get away with it, but it's bad. Locks were found on the outside of the children's bedrooms' doors. That is That's safeguard.
That's what Jim Bob did, right?
Yes.
On TLC.
Yeah.
On the TV show.
Well, not on the TV show, but he did that to
prevent Josh from...
Yes. So she had that. And that leads a lot of questions and people...
Why? Exactly.
Yeah. Because it's not safe and it's illegal, actually. That's why she's arrested. Because in the event of a fire, I mean, you can't lock your kids in a room.
Right. Is that the only thing they found?
So far. Well, so far it sounds presumptuous, like I'm insinuating she's committed other crimes. Just, yes.
But how did that even come about? Because
they searched his house.
Oh, and then they found locks.
Yes.
So she got arrested for that.
Both of them have been released from custody. Both of them are not allowed around their children. Joseph's next court date is April 20th. Kendra's is April 29th. And a little bit about Kendra before we get into the jailhouse calls, okay? Kendra is the daughter of a pastor. She's 1 out of 9 children. Her dad in 2014 distributed pamphlets claiming that there are no such things as homosexuals. And when people are like, why the hell did you do that? He said that it was merely him trying to spread love. I don't know what his definition of love is. And also during Kendra and Joseph's wedding, Kendra's dad just keeps telling Kendra that she reminds him so much of his wife, aka Kendra's mom. And it was just like so repeatedly, not the sweet, like, oh, you have your mother's eyes. But like, why do you keep saying that? It was just weird. They have 4 children together that Kendra is not allowed to see right now. And then all of this is just blowing up in March of 2026. And then it gets crazier because emails and jail calls are released. In emails between Joseph and his family members, Anna Duggar, Joshua Duggar's wife, makes an appearance. She lets Joseph know that they're all praying for him and that she deposited money into his commissary account. And then, quote, just remember, don't talk about anything legal unless you're with an attorney. Everything said in these messages, phone calls, and video chats are recorded and turned over to prosecutors. Joshua's experience at Washington County Jail was fairly safe. Anna talks about Kendra writing an email to Joseph. She loves you so much, and she was strong during our call, except when she mentioned it would be a month before she could see the kids. My heart aches for all of you. I believe she will prevail in the end. It may just take some time. Kendra is an extraordinary woman. God's grace shines through her. She is truly a treasure. Praying for you. Love ya, Anna.
Is Anna the only one?
No, a lot of other people are writing emails.
Like family members?
Mm-hmm. Kendra is writing emails.
That is crazy because your husband committed these crimes and here's Joseph who's potentially, like how could you?
Yeah, I think the terrifying thing is it's become so normalized in certain communities that doing this, okay, for Joshua, it was normalized of natural curiosity of a young boy. I don't know what logic they're using for Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
But this is truly just another way that certain communities, and I'm not saying all fundamentalist Christians or anyone with faith-based religion, I'm just saying like there are certain groups of people that will use religious text and genuinely good faith-based findings to just victimize women and children, and that's it. And then in another email, Anna Duggar writes to Joseph, I'm praising God that we started getting closer to you guys within the last year and a half. He knew that Kendra was going to need help. We will and are helping her.
What?
Yeah. Jim Bob is emailing Joseph. Joseph, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Mom and I love you very much. Looks like you have a long road ahead of you, but God will get you through. You have made some terrible decisions, but God has already forgiven you if you have asked him. You are just going to have to accept this situation at this point, and it's also fine to pray that God would have mercy on you, but you're probably going to face major consequences for several years to come. And he also insinuates that he should make lemonade out of lemons. Then there are phone calls between Joseph and Kendra Duggar where Kendra tells him that she has an attorney for her. And, he also has an attorney. He complains that he's been in solitary confinement. He's not really sleeping well through the night, but it's good to hear Kendra's voice.
So you're doing okay? I'm trying to keep my spirits up, and I feel like reading the Bible has really been helpful to calm and not think about all the situation. It's been uplifting. So
I will say listening to these phone calls is so odd. It's just odd.
Does it just feels illegal to hear that?
No, it's just the way they talk. Okay, so first of all, I can't imagine anyone talking to their spouse who has been charged with a crime like that in the way that Kendra is talking to Joseph. And it feels so distant and formal.
You think that's how they usually talk?
I think so. He is giving her religious advice. And she's like, praise the Lord. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening, everyone?
Yeah. What is he saying? Like,
he's like how he's reading Psalms and it's really getting him through. They have like a light moment where they talk about how Kendra mentions multiple times that she can't eat. She can't stomach anything. Everyone is worried about her because she can't eat and she needs energy, but like she just can't eat and she's frail and she's weak, right? And Joseph Duggar just didn't give a fuck. He does not give a flying fork about Kendra Duggar. I'm just going to say that right now. And I hope Kendra is listening to people that are telling her that too, because he almost sounds annoyed that she keeps mentioning this. He's like, well, you got to eat. I was reading Psalms.
When I got home, a little bit of food, the most I've been able to eat probably all week. And I got a little bit of strength back where I was able to walk, not like, because I was
yeah, you were very
struggling.
Said, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she just keeps bringing it up. And he's just like, yeah, I'm having a hard time eating too. And then they joke about how they're both going to lose weight. And they're like, haha. Kendra says that she's being taken care of by Joseph's family, end quote.
I just sometimes start crying because I know God's been so good. I've been writing down some of the things that I'm thankful for that, you know, we've gotten to do. Like I was thinking about our vacation we got to do as a family and our trip before. And so I was trying to write down
all of that today too.
He keeps preaching to her about how to listen to God, let God's voice take over, and read the book of Psalms. Yeah. And she says that she's just like, yeah. And there is this point that people have a lot of people online have brought it up, but she says that she's working through the list that he gave her on his iPad, and she's trying to coordinate how to get his phone out of custody, because when you get booked into jail, they take it into custody so that she can go through his phone. So a lot of people are concerned that she's trying to delete evidence. Further jail conversations talk about how she's getting passwords, I'm assuming to like banking and business stuff, but they could be the same thing. They could be different things. We don't know. But a lot of people, I think, just from the recollection of what happened with Joshua, there's concern that something is happening there. Yeah. But nothing is as blasphemous as Joshua Duggar's statement through his attorney when Joseph Duggar is arrested. The attorney says that Josh said that the allegations against Joseph have deeply saddened him, and that Joshua understands the stigma of being accused. He lives with the painful reality of how false accusations can destroy a life. He understands how the targeting of a person for publicity can twist the truth into sensationalized fiction. Calm down. You were not that famous. You were not targeted. And that is currently where we are with the Duggars. We're waiting for their court dates later in this month. We're just going to see where we go from there.
It could be really, really bad, right?
Yeah.
I find it a little shocking that Kendra is just like arrested. Yes, it is very bad that you are locking, but I feel like if Kendra could have been like, oh no, Joseph put the lock on or something. I don't know. What do you think it made them charge her that quickly? Do you feel like there's more things?
No, I think...
Or you think that's it? There's lock on the door.
Yeah. I think you would charge both parents immediately. Because it's just like that illegal.
Right, okay.
You know? I mean, I think maybe because...
That is true.
Yeah.
Like, why would they do something like that? So abnormal.
Because, I mean, my sister even had to watch out for the locks in the door when the kids were young because they would lock themselves in a room. So to have a lock outside the room is just...
Okay, right. So what's going... Like,
yeah,
I guess it's like something's going on in this house.
Yeah, and it's not
really
safe. Like, you cannot be alone. Like, Kendra cannot be alone with her kids anymore. I don't even think she can see her kids right now until April 29th. I think there will be another judgment, but... something really dark is going on. And I imagine that it was not... Because, you know, like maybe you could argue there's like a lock that locks from both sides. I'm imagining it was like very clear as day for the officers what that lock was.
Who else wrote letters or emailed Joseph and Kendra in the family? Do you know?
It was mainly them. A lot of the others have spoken out. I mean, interestingly enough, Jill said that she learned about Joseph's arrest through the media. She did not know from her parents. And so a lot of siblings have spoken out publicly that they are condemning what Joseph has done.
Oh, okay.
Or some of them have given slightly more PR friendly remarks of like, you know, victims, my heart breaks, can't believe it, but like not definitive, like, oh my God, fuck that guy, my brother, you know.
So Anna is supporting.
Yeah. Jim Bob, Michelle, and Kendra is very much supporting her husband in this.
Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of people are having a hard time swallowing all of this. And I think there will probably be more that comes out as time passes. But what are your thoughts on this case? I feel that the Duggar family their arrest recently has caused a lot more eyes into even the past of all the Duggar family members. And I think it's just there's such a high barrier of entry to get to know the family's entire digital footprint and lore because there's just so much information out there. And all of that information, I mean, I was even scared to research this case because with a case like this, of course, you're going to have opinions from people who grew up parasocially with the family or people who have grown up in similar conditions. And it's just a lot of even ideological viewpoints that you have to sift through to get to the root of like who these people even are. And it was just like a tremendous amount of content out there. But one netizen comments, is 19 Kids and Counting the name of the show or the Sun's rap sheets? So with that being said, that is where I leave you with part 4. Let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts? Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.